I'm Nina van Tilburg for Biz News. Amazon is set to launch its online shopping service in South Africa this year. This move is expected to shake up the e-commerce market in the country, with Takealot, owned by Naspers, being the biggest player. In anticipation of Amazon's arrival, Takealot has been expanding its services. To discuss what this competition would mean and who the potential winners and losers could be, we have Andy Higgins. Who better for that than the e-commerce entrepreneur with experience on different continents to discuss what this new development means for consumers and other e-commerce businesses. Andy is now the managing director of the Bob Group. Hi, Andy, and welcome to Biz News.
Hi, Linda. Thanks for having me.
So what will the biggest challenges be that Amazon will face in South Africa?
Sure. Yeah, I think many people expect Amazon to come in and from day one to have a massive impact on the market, but I personally believe it's going to take them longer than most people think to have an impact. I think some of the challenges they'll face is not having controlling their own infrastructure on the ground. I think when it comes to e-commerce, infrastructure is critically important, so they'll be using third parties, and they'll be having to integrate those third parties into the software that they use globally, I imagine, for providing the Amazon Marketplace service. And I'm sure that will come with some challenges, at least initially.
So the challenges will be infrastructure, logistics, all the stuff that South Africans are dealing with, as you say, that they don't normally have.
Exactly. And also the localization of that. I think there are differences and nuances to our market compared to other markets where Amazon operates in. And they'll need to find ways to adapt how they do things normally for the local market, which I think will also be a bit of a challenge.
So who would the biggest threat be to Amazon, or the other way around? Would that be Takealot?
I do think Takealot, being sort of the most established player as it stands, would face sort of the most competition from them. I also think they're probably the best positioned to take them on as well. I think if you look back when other international players entered the market in other areas, like, for example, Google with search, or Facebook and the social media aspect, or Twitter for that matter, they really did dominate. They really had a strong presence in the market even before they established a local presence. But I think e-commerce is different in that it's more localized. It requires more sort of feet on the ground with a local presence, with local warehousing and infrastructure for logistics and all of that. So I think a lot of people think that we're going to see the same with Amazon coming and just taking over and dominating from day one. But I think that, in my view, that's unlikely to be the case. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we should underestimate Amazon and their potential and what they could have, but I just think it's going to take a lot longer than most people think.
Do you think Takealot will be able to compete with Amazon in terms of pricing and what products they're going to offer?
Yes, if you have a look at they've already published, Amazon have published their pricing model, and it's very similar to that of Takealot from at least what they charge from a seller's point of view. And they're going to be competing for essentially the same products, because it's mostly based on a third-party seller model where they don't sell the products themselves. They provide the platform for third-party sellers to sell. So they're essentially going to be having the same sellers who have the same cost base. And so if they're charging essentially the same price, I think unless they discount it themselves, and that there's potentially some competition commission issues that come in with that, if they do that, I think pricing, it's going to be difficult to discount the pricing. So I think in the long term, at least, pricing will probably be similar. So I think it's going to be more competition on the service and the experience that consumers have using each of the different platforms.
So what impact do you think it will have on small and medium businesses who actually want this marketplace? Because now they can go on both. They can either go to Takealot or they can go to Amazon.
Look, I think they will probably sell on both platforms. So I think ultimately the consumer will be the winner. If there's a bit of a competition, a bit of a price competition and so on, that does kick in there. But I also think there's a threat for the smaller players as well, because what we might see is some of the bigger players taking the South African market more seriously, making it where they come with stronger sort of pricing ability due to volume that they're able to offer. So it could in some respects make it more difficult for the smaller players. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out there.
So what advice would you give to small and medium business looking to compete with Amazon in the marketplace?
To compete with them? Well, I would argue don't compete with them, rather leverage them and use them to help grow your business. So I would suggest to the smaller players, but definitely create your own presence with your own website and try and build your own brand and direct sales as much as you can. But then also piggyback on top of all the online marketplaces. I would suggest list your products on all the marketplaces and use that as just an additional sales channel to get additional sales, while also at the same time growing your own direct sales channel as well.
Well, do you have an idea how big is this e-commerce market in South Africa?
So South Africa still very much lags the rest of the world, even our emerging market counterparts. We think we're still under 5% of total retail. So if total retail is somewhere around 1.4 trillion rand a year, we'd be looking at about 70 billion rand in e-commerce sales per year in South Africa. And that's still, if you even compare us to the likes of Brazil or India or other Southeast Asian countries, most of those are well over 10% e-commerce penetration already. So we still have a lot of catch up to play. And I, for one, am hopeful that with Amazon's entry into the market, it's going to help act as a catalyst to help get us to where we should be, which is beyond that 10% of retail for e-commerce.
Do you think it could grow to that?
Absolutely, I do. I think it's just a question of time and how long it will take. I've been saying for probably a long time now that I felt we should be there already. So I'm not going to hazard a guess as to when that will be, but I'm very sure we'll get there at some point, yes.
What effect does the fact that some South Africans don't buy like that? I mean, they don't buy online because they don't have the ability, they don't have the tech. So how could those issues be addressed?
That is definitely a hindrance, but I think it is changing, perhaps not as fast as we would like. And I think a big driver for that is mobile. So most South Africans now do have access to a mobile device, if not a computer or another way of buying online. So we are seeing a shift where people are shopping through mobile device. For me personally, I think payment has become less of an obstacle, and connectivity as well, less of an obstacle, because people do have access, and data pricing has come down and continues to come down, and payment methods are more widely available. I think the one area that's still lacking is on the logistics side, though. So, for example, if I'm living in a more rural area or township, currently I have to pay a premium to get something delivered to me there, because most courier companies would consider, for example, a township as a high-risk area, and you pay much more. I think that's also that's a big hindrance at the moment, but it is changing. For example, with pickup points, things like smart parcel lockers, where it's still going to be cheaper and not have those surcharges added on. I think once that becomes more mainstream, we'll see greater adoption. So I think it's, again, just a matter of time, and in particular for the logistics side to become more mature.
Well, talking about the logistics, because Amazon is doing some exciting stuff overseas, like drones. Were you quite excited that those kind of things might come to South Africa?
Look, I think drones are there's a lot of hype around it, and it's exciting and it's fun, and it's something that I think will find a place, but probably more as a niche. I personally don't think it'll become mainstream, but for sure, I mean, Amazon have invested heavily. They've basically become competitors to the FedExes and the UPSs and that of the world in other more developed markets. So they are clearly understand probably better than just about anyone how important the logistics component is of e-commerce, and they have invested a lot in software and all of that. But so I think that is going to continue to evolve. But I suspect it's still some time, if ever. I'm not sure whether they would bring all of that tech into South Africa. I think for me, what's more interesting is using AI and robots to do the picking and the packing and all that. For me, has more, and the EVs coming in with autonomous vehicles also. That sort of thing for me has more realistic practical implications. But I suspect South Africa would still be quite far down the list before we start seeing that tech arriving in the country.
So the winner seems to be consumers and job creation.
Yes, job creation. Yes, I think I can go along with that. But obviously, with the advanced tech, certain jobs will also probably get eliminated. But I think other jobs will also get created in place of that.
So if you look at your experience, I mean, just take us a little bit back of everything you've done in this space.
So I was involved with, we launched Bid or Buy, which was probably the first online marketplace in South Africa back in 1999. And then went through what I call the dark ages of the internet, which was pre-ADSL in the early 2000s. ADSL sort of came, I think, around 2004, 2005, and we started seeing things change. The business grew, but in a very sort of limited capacity, as you know, the market probably wasn't quite ready from an adoption point of view. I was involved in 2007 with launching an online payments business called PayFast with my co-founder there, Jonathan Smith. It was very interesting. It was kind of like we didn't have PayPal in the country. We still don't have it to its full extent either. And so we saw an opportunity for that with payments. I happened to actually get involved in the very early stages of Takealot as well. I was a small investor. We shared a larger venture capital investor, Tiger Global, who invested in Bid or Buy at the time, and then also invested in Takealot, ultimately got sold to Takealot. So after then, I've also been involved with assisting Shopify from launching their platform in some African countries, which also kind of spoke to where Africa became, we focused initially on the logistics because we saw that as an opportunity and what was lacking in the markets, which ultimately led to Africa essentially buying what was Bid or Buy at the time and forming what is now Bob Group. And within Bob Group, we offer 5 different services. We offer the marketplace, which Bid or Buy was rebranded to Bob Shop. We have our own payment solution now called Bob Pay. We have a logistics aggregation business called Bob Go. And we've also, in the early stages of launching a smart parcel locker network called Bob Box, which we're very excited about, especially for what we spoke about in enabling, the larger base of South Africa to be able to partake in e-commerce. And then the 5th service we offer is a courier software business where we provide software for courier to run the entire business. So you can see a lot of it is focused around logistics, which, as we've discussed, is a very key part of e-commerce.
So why did you move to the logistics side away from the retail side?
So I think that's just basically where we saw the opportunity, where we saw merchants were struggling or there was space for some innovation. So what we've done, in particular with Bob Go, is we make it easy for merchants when they receive an order to be able to ship that order. So we get quotes from multiple different courier companies, and depending on what the parcel is, it's basically its size and where it's going from and where it's going to. We provide quotes, and the merchant can then select a quote from a different courier and at favorable pricing, and then we manage that whole process from then on, from the tracking, keeping the customer up to date throughout the process. And so far, it's arguably being possibly the most successful part of our overall business, with quite high adoption from a lot of merchants using that service.
So are more entrants into this market good for your business?
Yes, I think that's one thing. So where we have the marketplace, on the one hand, we compete directly against Takealot and Amazon, and let's not forget Macro as well, which owned by Massmart, now 100% owned by Walmart, is also a serious player within the market. So we compete against all of those on the marketplace side, but we're not just marketplace. We provide payments and logistics. So we very much have a vested interest in the overall e-commerce market growing in the country, which hopefully this sort of this with Amazon coming in creates a new impetus for that growth to happen. So yes, so we welcome and we hope that Amazon does have a big impact in the market. I'm just optimistically cautious about how long that's going to take and how realistic that is, given some of the challenges that we spoke about that they will be faced with.
Do you think the element of people who will say, no, I won't take a lot because local is lekker, I don't want these, would that be an element they have to fight against Amazon?
I do think that will play a factor. I wonder, though, how loyal South Africans really are at the end of the day when it comes to money matters. But I do think that will play a factor, yes. And perhaps more so from just a pure sort of conscience point of view, more so from just having that stronger local presence with local infrastructure. I just think that the experience may end up being better for customers. So fortunately, I think that they maybe will make that choice. Not only, it'll be easier for them to make that choice because it will be a better experience.
So what I think you're saying is it's not going to be a slam dunk for Amazon in South Africa.
Absolutely not. I mean, you can look at other markets where Amazon have launched, smaller markets, even in Asia, and even in I think a country like Morocco or Poland, where they've been strong incumbents there already. They haven't, or India is also another very interesting example, but big investments from the likes of Amazon and essentially Walmart through their investment in Flipkart in India. They haven't been successful in every country they've entered into. So it's not just, so it's definitely not a slam dunk for them, I think.
Andy Higgins, Managing Director of the Bob Group, thanks for speaking to us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.